Hello, this is Mr. Grover's back to school night video meant for parents in my class for back to school night. This does not replace back to school night. This is meant to be a video for parents to watch before they come to back to school night. This way we can kind of talk about some of the information in it. And in case you can't come to back to school night, this will cover a lot of the key things that you need to know. So my extension and email are right here. Please feel free to contact me anytime you have any questions or any concerns about anything. All right, a couple syllabus things. Now, my syllabus is posted on Sharp School, so if you log on there and go to your child's class for that they have of mine and click under resources, you'll see syllabus. You're welcome to print out a copy, but I'm also going to go over it here for you real quickly. As far as supplies go, they need the Mathematics That Work for Common Core Geometry workbook that's sold in the bookstore for $24. Hopefully, at this point, they've already done that. But if not, please have them buy that as soon as possible. That's what we use every single day. A 3-ring binder, at least 1.5 inch. Not a spiral notebook. The binder works much better because they're going to have a tremendous amount of handouts and worksheets, and we hole punch everything, and this way it all goes into a binder. A folder just won't cut it because they're going to get like 100 handouts. So the binder is the way to go. So please make sure they have that, and obviously loose leaf paper to go with that. They need a calculator. This is a geometry course, not an algebra course, but we still need the calculator. They won't use it as much as they did last year, but they will still need it. Pens and pencils, I guess, are pretty obvious. A compass. The compasses are sold in the school bookstore also along with the workbook. They cost $1, but they don't need to buy one. They're given one for free. Every student gets a compass for free. However, if they break it or lose it, they will need to buy a replacement compass in the bookstore for $1. Then there's the Bic 4-color retractable pen. This is a recommendation, not a requirement. I love this pen, and I think it's perfect for students taking notes because in class I write in blue, I write in green, I write in red, and I write in black. This color has these 4 colors all in one pen. So when I write in blue, the student should write in blue. When I switch to green, the student switches to green. And this way their notes match my notes, and it really helps with mathematics to see different steps in different colors. And when they look at their notes days later, they can kind of still see that step. It doesn't all just blend together. So I really do feel it helps in the education process if they have multiple colors. And that one pen can match all 4 colors I have on a smartboard right there. So it's highly recommended. All right, the course description. If you'd like to pause the video and read this, go right ahead. I'm going to move on. It basically says we're doing Common Core geometry. Grading policy, quarter grades, 85% from tests and 15% from homework / preparedness. The way my homework policy is, I have one column in my grade book titled homework. They start with a perfect 100 score. Every time they miss a homework assignment, -5. Every time they're unprepared for class, whether it's homework or they don't have a calculator for when they need one, or if they don't have their notebook, they don't have a compass, they don't have something to write with. If they're not prepared, for me, that's the same as not doing their homework, -5. So they start at a perfect score of 100. If they do all their assignments and come prepared, that stays at 100, and that can really help out their grade. So try to keep that up. And obviously 85% from tests. That's, we're going to have tests and quizzes, all are in there. 70s are passing grade. Their final grade for the year will be determined with 22.5% for each quarter, and 10% of their grade is going to come from the Regents exam in June. Assignments, announcements, notes, lectures, all on Sharp School. You might be watching this on Sharp School or from YouTube. Videos are posted in 2 locations. Then the first question parents always have, when is your extra help? It is Wednesdays from 2:45 to 3:30 in my classroom, room 107. And hopefully that's where I'm going to be seeing all of you at back to school night. All right, that's it for the syllabus. That's it for the boring stuff. The rest of this video, I'd like to take a few minutes and kind of explain to you how I like to run my classroom, because my classroom is probably a little untraditional, a little unorthodox from what they may have had in the past. What I run is a type of classroom called a flipped classroom. And it's something that's getting very popular, so I think they're going to see a lot more of it in high school and definitely in college. And so let me explain a little bit to you. First, to understand flipped, let's talk about the traditional classroom first. The math classroom they probably had last year, unless they had me. Because I've been doing this for a couple of years. But I did teach the traditional model for several years. And it worked well, but there were a couple of flaws. So let's discuss. First of all, the way this model typically works is in school, there's 40-minute classes, and the first 5 to 10 minutes was checking homework and going over homework. The problem with that right there is there's only 40 minutes in class, so if I'm spending 5, sometimes 10 minutes, a fourth of the class, on old material, that really cuts into the lecture of the day. And so that's really kind of not a good thing. You know, when they have a lot of questions on homework, that really hurts the lecture of what the teacher planned that day. But that's typically, I mean, if you assign problems for homework, you got to go over them. Then you'd have about a 20 to 30-minute lecture of new material. Teachers in front of the class explaining how to do something. Students are listening, taking notes, asking questions, going over a couple of examples, so on, so on. Typical lecture. Then, if the teacher is lucky, they'll have 5 minutes left for practice, where the teacher says, all right, now that I showed you how to do this, here's a problem, you try it. And the teacher walks up and down the classroom rows answering a couple of questions, but in 5 minutes, how many students does the teacher really get to talk to? Then the teacher assigns homework, and that's usually about a 20-minute assignment that they do at home, which is basically practice. Now, a couple of flaws with this model. First of all, there's not enough practice in class. The lecture eats up so much time in class, you know, and going over the previous night's homework that, yeah, they're practicing, you know, while the teacher's lecturing, but during that lecture, the teacher's really kind of doing the problem, showing them how it's done. They don't get a lot of time of, all right, now you try it all by yourself and see what happens. There's not enough time of that. Most of the practice on the material is done at home during the 20 minutes at home practice. And the problem with that is there's no professional assistance there. Now, maybe they have a tutor, or maybe you as a parent can help them with Common Core geometry. But from what I've heard, most of the parents of the students that I have don't know how to do Common Core geometry, so they can't help them. So when a student has a question here, they don't really know what to do. They can, I mean, if they're really proactive, they could go online and try to research it or something, or look in a textbook, or call up a friend maybe. But a lot of them, when they don't know how to do it, they just, oh, well, I'll do my best and I'll find out tomorrow in class during the, 5 to 10 minute homework check. So there's not a lot of help there. And also, there's not enough time for students to ask questions. Now, of course, students can always ask questions, but during the 30-minute lecture, when students ask questions, it slows things down. And so the teacher will answer the question, but we would really prefer to get through the material because we have to get it all in before the bell rings. And during the 5-minute practice, students will ask questions, but if we have a class of 30 kids, you're not going to get to answer every kid's question in 5 minutes. So that's the traditional model. It's worked for many years, and it's not bad. But the flipped model is a little bit different. Everything is still done, just kind of in a different way. In the flipped model, in school, it's just practice. See, this is kind of backwards because the lesson actually doesn't start in school like in the old model. The lesson starts at home with a 10-minute video lecture, similar to what you're watching right now. And during that 10-minute lecture, the kids are simply watching what you're watching, and they're writing down the notes, and they're just listening. That's part of what was the 30-minute in-class lecture. A lot of it's the introduction stuff and so on, but it's how to do the problems and so on. Then when they come into school, it's 30 minutes of practice. Because they got the lecture at home, they can practice in school. And so it allows for a lot more practice time here. And during this 30-minute practice, they have the professional assistance they need. Now, the way I like to run the classroom typically is I'll assign them a couple of problems to do in class when they get in. They work in groups, and I say, all right, do numbers 1, 2, and 3. You got 5 minutes, go. And for 5 minutes, they're working in their groups, and I'm walking around the classroom, and I'm helping them. Student has a question, I'm right there. I'm answering, I'm talking to that student one-on-one, helping them, showing them where they went wrong. At the end of the 5 minutes, I have a timer on my board. It goes off. I get everybody's attention to the front of the room, and I continue the lecture that the video left off. I go over the problems they just did. So the lecture is still done in class, but part of it is at home. The boring note-taking part is at home. The part they don't really need me there for. They just need somebody to explain it to them, show it to them, so they write things down. What they really need me for is the practice, is when they're getting their hands dirty, when they're really trying the material, when they're making mistakes, when they're working on those hard problems. They're going to have problems. They're going to have questions. They're going to make mistakes. But if I'm there to help them, that's the most valuable. So the lecture's kind of split up, a little at home, kind of an introduction note part, and then the rest of the lecture is kind of revealed in class while we're doing the material. So some of the features here is this allows for much more practice in class with the professional assistants. Sorry, let me move this. Now, in total, this model, and of course these are approximate numbers, this was 5-minute practice in class and 20-minute at home, total of 25-minute practice. This is 30-minute practice, so it's more practice, and it's with the professional assistants and working in their groups, so they have their peer assistants also. Much more time for students' questions. See, in the old model, if a student asked a question during the lecture, the whole lecture stopped, and everybody had to wait for the student to answer that one question for that one student. Not everybody had that question, but everybody's lecture had to stop. This model, they can ask questions while they're doing problems, and I will talk to that one student individually. Everybody else keeps working. And they could ask questions the entire 40 minutes, and I will answer them the whole time. Now, if a lot of the students have the same question, which does come up sometimes I'll wait till the end of that 5 minutes and address it as a group. But they have so much more opportunity to ask questions because they're not interrupting a lecture. The videos can be paused, rewind, rewatched as many times as they need. They're excellent study resources. You know, if a student's absent, they're not falling behind. They can use them, you know, to prep for tests and, you know, as much as they need to watch it. But it's not everything. Of course, we do a lot in class. We extend the lecture in class. Now, a couple of things you may notice. This was a 30-minute lecture in the traditional, and here it's only 10 and 10. How is that possible? This is 20 minutes, so am I doing less? No, I'm actually doing more. The lecture gets a lot less, it gets cut shorter here in a good way because I'm not interrupted by questions like I am here. So what takes me 30 minutes here with questions and students asking to go to the bathroom and different things like that, I don't have that in a video. So the lecture doesn't take as long to do the same lecture. Plus, when they're working in groups and things like that, I could kind of let them discover the rest of the lecture. See, by giving them the intro in a video and kind of guiding them through practice in class, they often figure out the next step in the lecture without me even telling them. And that's way more valuable. So this is the flipped model, and I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and I love it. And I've had a lot of success with it, and all the classes I've done it with, they seem to love it too. So this is how I like to run things. Now, back to school night, I'm sure you're going to have questions. What happens if they don't watch a video? What happens if we lose internet? What happens? You know, I'll address all of these questions at back to school night. They're excellent questions, but I got to tell you, it works out really, really well, and I think we're going to have an excellent year. So if you have questions and can't make it, please give me a phone call, send me an email. Happy to chat. But I look forward to seeing as many of you at back to school night as I can. Take care.